Well, good morning, everyone. I'm Jan Erickson from Stepping Aside, and welcome to Somewhat Daily Tarot and Rune for the first day of July 2019. Well, we have both a 7 energy, which is about balance, a 1 energy, which is new beginnings. The 7 is also about divinity and witchcraft and magic and balancing shadow side with spirit. So then we also have a 3-year, which is a manifestation year. Last year was an illumination year. It was an 11 year. And so we learned a lot of things. We continue to learn a lot of things, but now we have to decide what we're going to do about all that we've become enlightened about. And so that's where a year of manifestation maybe comes into play. And so today we're going to talk a little bit about hopefully with the cards, something to do with new beginnings and balancing the shadow side and spirit if we align with today. But I don't know. We'll see, won't we? You never know what the cards are going to do. Well, if this is your first time here, welcome. Thank you so much for coming by, and click subscribe. I'd love you to do that. And check out my blog, Stepping Aside, over at imsteppingaside.com. The geomancy reading for the month is up, as is the tarot reading for the month. I did those yesterday and I think the day before. I published those days. So I'm not doing it inside the first week of the month like I've been doing. The garden is just, finally gotten to the point where I don't have to be out there as much. And so I can devote a little more time to other things besides digging in the dirt. So anyhow. If you're back again, thank you so much for coming back. I appreciate everyone who stops by. This is such a fun thing to do, learning about tarot and runes and seeing how they affect our lives in such profound and significant ways. They can act as a guide. They can act as just higher self. You can look at it in terms of higher self, sending a message of something to maybe be aware of or pay attention to. I'm not so much about predictions because I think that there are just way too many variables that can affect all of it. I can find trends. I can find energy going in a particular direction, but I'm a little bit reluctant to say, oh yes, this is definitely going to happen. We are all here at the behest of the Creator. We're all points of the Creator's light, focused into form, learning more. So to think that we necessarily have control over someone else's experiences, we don't. We might be a player in them, certainly, but to think that we control, everything under the sun, we don't. This is all about opportunity and it's just the way we put it all together in our own special way. And then somehow or another, we're all supposed to get along. One good thing about the cards, I will say, as I shuffle a little bit here, we've been seeing a trend away from division and more toward the understanding that even if it's just a shared purpose, we have to have something that's shared. We are not the other in each other's lives. We are the other side of self in each other's lives. And so, there's lots of expressions from my childhood, there but for the grace of God go I. Well, I'm sure that may still be an expression that's used from time to time, particularly from old people. But anyway, it's true, except that we are the other. And so when we see somebody that we think is challenging, we ought to think about, well, what if we were that way? What if what we're looking at is maybe an aspect of our own self that we're uncomfortable with? We're seeing it play out, and maybe some of it resonates enough that we're a little bit uncomfortable by that. It's like, oh no, do I do that? But even if it's not that, how people express themselves gives us a window into the other side of self, doesn't it? If you think about it in terms of wholeness, if you think about creation being one organism, and that's how I view it, is we're all just part of one organism called the Creator. So whereas we have access to all of that knowledge, we don't necessarily, perceive it in our everyday lives. So that's why we look at other people and we say, oh, that's interesting. Let's get started. So if you haven't been here before, I do this randomly. I'm not going to lay 3 cards out or 4 cards out. And I either do 3 or 4, but I'm going to do them randomly. And then when I'm done with that, I'm going to pull a rune out of the bag. And then I'm going to put together a geomancy rune, just as an overall, maybe bringing it all together, or maybe just an outlier. Sometimes it can be both. Let's draw the first card. Well, we have the Ace of Swords. New thinking, new perception. If we are out of balance in our perception, we need to bring it. We have the energy this month to bring it back into balance, balancing ego with spirit, have more heavily weighted on spirit, of course. But here we have this, but the sword, the suit of swords is about the air element, or our intellect, or our reason. It's about justice. There could be something justice oriented. Mr. Mueller is slated to come to speak to Congress and the world, not just the country, on the 17th. Energetically, that's an 8th day, and then we're looking at higher self really coming into play there. Influence of spirit, understanding the greater aspect of everything and how that influences each one of us, that it simply isn't about the individual, it's about the collective. And there you're talking leadership skills. So it's not just being aware. You see that with the 6, say with the 6 of Pentacles, we've seen that where it's shared abundance. The man has more than he needs and he's sharing it with people less fortunate. Having that awareness that you can help others, you see, that's what you're starting to see with the 6, and then it gets even more further solidified with the 8. And so that's what we're going to see on that day, energies like that in play. But here with the Ace of Swords, beginning, especially given that it's the first day of July, then we're opening the month with new thinking, with new perception, with new reason, with balanced reason, with justice. Perception based on justice, perception based on the Tiwas within, or the spiritual warrior within. It's also my brother's birthday. Happy birthday. Let's draw another card. Well, again, I think that this is about, again, balancing and what are we manifesting, because I've drawn the second card of the major arcana, the High Priestess. She sits between the pillars of Solomon. We see, if you could see behind her fully, then you would see pomegranates in the shape of the tree of life. She is the energy that takes us below the abyss and into form. The magician, on the other hand, stays above. And that's the alchemical, creation of who we are. And then she takes this and moves through the veil into the unknown. Well, balancing unknown with unknown, isn't she? She has her foot resting on a crescent moon, depicting the maiden influence of maiden, mother, and crone. You see the same depicted on her headdress, don't you? Only here you see the triple goddess. The cross on her gown, on the front of her gown, indicates alignment on both vertical plane and horizontal. So not only mind, body, spirit in balance, spirit in balance with form, but also masculine and feminine polarities on the horizontal plane as well. The perfect card for July 1st, isn't it? Depicting both the 7 really in terms of balance and as far as the 2 goes, because it's about decisions and balance and all of that. As above, so below, balance particularly. So what she's really saying here is that when we are trying to get our new perception going here, and numerologically, you're looking at a 3 energy here with the ace and the 2 combining together. 1 and 2 is 3. So you're talking about about what we're going to manifest. And are we going to manifest new thought, new perception, have it all be in balance, both as above, so below, both and as well as horizontal. She also holds the Torah in her hand, the book of knowledge. Knowledge from spirit. So again, the as above, so below balance, we express into form. Our soul expresses into form. It is the soul that drives the vehicle, basically, not the personality, not the ego. I mean, it does when it's in alignment. You're going to see evidence of all of that. But at the same time, at least if it's in alignment, that spirit is the driving force behind everything we're doing. When we forget that spirit is there, and the vertical plane itself is not, in balance with itself, then what drives essentially what drives the bus is the ego, and then all sorts of wonderful things happen, don't they? We get ourselves into all kinds of trouble. Swords is also about how we communicate with others. And so this may be a new form of communication that's coming out. Some new awareness, some new knowledge is coming into being, is coming into light. That's another aspect of the Ace of Swords. Let's do a third card. Well, we have the card of death. So the 13th card of the major arcana. Now I consider 13 a master witch number, but that's just me. Most numerologists will reduce it to 4. But here you have transition and rebirth. You see over there in the distance, you see where the sun is coming up. It's coming up between 2 pillars. And again, I'm going to put the cards down. You're going to see those same pillars here in the Temple of Solomon. The pillars tend to denote or suggest maybe a doorway into new experiences. And so here, the king is dead on the ground. People are mourning. The priest is there as death rides through the scene. You see the white rose of purity and rebirth and renewal. It's actually a very positive card. It means transition. And it's basically, in a sense, it's within it's similar to Hagalaz, the witch rune from the Elder Futhark. That would be number 9, about completion. And so what you're looking at here with death, though, how I feel that relates to that is that this is actually a process within a fixed framework, okay? When a witch casts a spell that destroys something, the witch is doing it within a fixed framework. So if you do a banishing or a binding or what have you, if you're trying to end energies from continuing, in other words, that are harmful, then what you're doing it within that whole concept of the spell, that's within the fixed framework, okay? So death in itself is a cycle. You have death and rebirth, right? So in a sense, it's a fixed framework. And so when you see the card here, you see the sun coming up through the center of the 2 towers, aren't you? So it's a new day is dawning. We've transitioned out of that which no longer serves and into something better, into at least something new. So this is interesting. I'm going to put death first. I'm going to move the cards around, which you can do. They're your cards. You can move them around any way you want, even in fixed. I mean, the only time I probably wouldn't, and even then I would be tempted, is if, say, I was doing something past, present, and future, where each card is specifically for one thing, But even then, if it doesn't make any sense, I'm still going to move them around. But I think we're going to start with death, and that's going to be our transition into something new, followed by the Ace of Swords. And then, so what is new thinking, new communication, new reason, new justice, new beginnings, in any event, whatever it is. Now, we could put the High Priestess in, and we could have the Ace of Swords be last. Maybe we'll do that. No, let's not. Let's just couch it between the 2 major cards. So if you were to reduce the 13 to a 4, you would have 4 and 2. So 4 is a multiple of 2. So we would definitely have the death first, because that's going to be the expansive energy. That's the energy of transformation. And then we can either have the high priestess next and talk about balance, keeping everything in balance, or it could be what we need to do with the new thinking. So either way, it doesn't really matter, does it? So 4 and 2 is 6. We have 7. So we have, again, a 7 energy. And yeah, let's pivot on the Ace of Swords being the, definitely. Okay. So how it will be is we'll have, if we could depict this as the scales, we would have the Ace of Swords in the center as the resting point of balance. And then we have transition on one side and a balance between higher self and ego and masculine and feminine on the other. So it's no longer about, in other words, just balancing polarities within and without. This is about the true polarity that really matters. Okay, the masculine and feminine is not as important as spirit and ego, or spirit and personality. All right. I love when it visually comes together, don't you? It's just incredible when it happens that way. Let's draw a rune. And with that, if you haven't been here before, what I do, and it doesn't make any difference if it's in a reading, it doesn't make any difference if I'm creating a bind rune, I set my intention and then I just start drawing runes. For this purpose, I just do one rune. But for a bind rune, I would do anywhere from 3 to 5. I would just stop whenever I felt like I should stop. But they never fail me. They always give me exactly what I need for the bind runes. So I just do it that way. I don't, in other words, I don't take all my runes out and start choosing the ones I want. I don't do it that way. Anyhow, this is Kenaz, the torch. And then the 6th rune of the Elder Futhark, and so higher self speaking to us. Balance, enlightenment. Really could align with any of these cards, but likely death probably the most, although we could put it right in the middle with the Ace of Swords. Yeah, I mean, I really think that what we've got here is transition, and it's describing the transition. You know, we're being, again, with a higher self-influence. If we let ego set the tone, if we let ego define the narrative, we're never going to get anywhere. And the isms and the hate and the division and all of that we've been living with, you know, the patriarchy we've been living with, it's never going to go away. And that's not where we're going. See, our spirit is ready to ascend onto a more diverse experience, you know, and one that is based on awareness and not upon division of the ego that's caused by the ego. You know, we're all one. We might as well embrace that. Feel the magic of it. Feel the glory of it. Let's see what the geomancy rune has to say. All right. Now, if you've never done this before with me, these are put in a particular order. And of course, I can't see anything because I'm in the dark here. Okay, so we need to find fire. There's fire. I either have a single dot with their respective element on one side, or I have a dual dot. And in this case, I threw it down and there's a dual dot. And so fire is first with a dual dot, 2 dots, air with 1, water with 1, and earth with 2. So what we have here, and we had this last week, actually a couple of times, Monday and Tuesday conjunctio, which is about unity and joining. And I was drawing these out, and then I found the ones that I did, that I made into runes. So let me just find conjunctio here, and I'll show you what that looks like rather than you having to tolerate my artwork, which is, you know, frightening. I mean, I could just draw one of these out of a pouch, but realistically, you know, you're supposed to be either using, you know, peas or beans or stones or or whatever. I just chose to do them in runes. I just found it easier to work with. I'm only working with 4 that way, and then I'm not having to count. Because when you have to count, an odd number equals a 1 dot and an even number equals a 2 dot. And so, I mean, to me, it's just messy. So I did this because I craft my own runes. So I thought, why not do it this way? And then I just went ahead and did all of the 16 geomantic runes like this. So this is Conjunctio. Now the 2 dots indicate a passive influence, a single dot, an active influence. So here, if you saw populace, which is a series of 4 dots, this is the crowd, following the crowd. It's an allowing. And if there was just single dots, that's Vaya. And that would be an active influence. So there you're blazing your own trail. But here you have a group that's chosen to come together as one. Perhaps that's our transition. That we're coming together as one and realizing that even though we might disagree with one another, that's how innovation happens, through disagreement. Well, I have a better idea. No, you don't. Yes, I do. I'll prove it to you. And then they say it and you're like, oh, wow, you do. I mean, that's a simplified version of a conversation like that, but you can imagine, you know, the fireworks may fly a bit before some kind of an understanding is achieved. But through that dialogue, that's what happens. Typically. Not always. But with Kenaz, what that's describing to us is that the awareness is there if we just open our eyes and see. That's all we have to do. If we lay down the arms, if we stop seeing everyone as the other and see them as the other side of self. You know, technically we're all family, but you know, if that's just a bridge too far, baby steps, you know? Just start viewing people more neutrally and see the awareness that comes to you when you do. When you stop judging everybody for everything they do, maybe you have ability to see. It's like, you know, when you shut up and listen and you stop talking, you learn all kinds of things. Same sort of idea. If we just get quiet and we stop deciding how things should be for everybody else, just be quiet and just bless everybody. Everybody we come into contact. Just, you know, if you go to the grocery store, silently bless everyone you see, everyone you walk by, and see what it does. I guarantee you, you're going to walk out of there a different person. Trust me. Anyhow, thanks so much for coming by. I think this does it for today. I don't think I need to draw a 4th card. It's just a wonderful way to start July. It's a wonderful way to start the week. New thinking, new perception, focused on justice, focused on balance. I think the trend continues, doesn't it? Thanks so much for coming by, and do check out the 2 latest posts on the blog. I think I'm supposed to do I have to do a moon one today. Does it move into Cancer? I'm not sure. I didn't do the one on the weekend, the Gemini one. I didn't have time, and so basically I'm just having to remember. I think it might be Cancer, but I'm not sure. Whichever one it is, though, I'll get that done today, and that'll be up on the blog as well. So check all 3 of them out: the monthly tarot, the monthly geomancy, and wherever it is the moon's moving today. Anyhow, I get off track and then I just like, which one is it? Anyway, be good to yourselves, be good to one another, and blessed be.